Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Let me just have a look. Yes, we are live. We are live. Good morning, beautiful women. Here we are. Day 3 has arrived. It is Wednesday. We've got 2 guest speakers today, which is really exciting. First speaker will be with us at 10 o'clock, which is Erin Lee. We're going to be diving into a subject that I think is so exciting in its simplicity and in its power to really give us clear direction in setting up this beautiful life that we want, supporting us to be the most authentic and living the highest expression of the woman we're here to be. And then this afternoon, we're talking to Wendy and we're talking about transcendental meditation and a few other exciting bits and pieces. So first off, what I want to do is just do a little recap of what we've talked about on the first 2 days. As you come in, I'm just looking over here. I can see on Facebook, good morning. Good morning. Let me just, oh no, don't want volume on that. So just say good morning. It is a little tricky when I'm on Zoom. I'm not seeing your comments, but I do come back and see them after. And I'm so grateful when you just take a minute to say hello. Let me know who's here. So on the first day, oh, hey, Janelle, it's lovely to have you here. On the first day, we talked with Kim and we were really focusing on self-love. And the reason I chose that subject first and foremost is because we cannot love anybody else more than we love ourselves. And it's not from a narcissistic or from a self-obsessed point of view that seems to be a focus of the self-love conversation and a concern that people have. It is about honoring who we are, honoring our life, seeing ourselves as a piece of this amazing interconnected web of energy and life force that connects us all. We are part of a whole, not just a single entity. So us loving ourselves and understanding that that is the, when we love ourselves with that complete full heart, it influences how we choose to move our bodies, how we choose to feed our bodies, who we choose to surround ourselves with, and all those different pieces. Then yesterday we talked to Kylie and we looked at some of the foundation things that really support our well-being and understanding that precious interconnectedness of our gut and our brain, and knowing that the way we feed ourselves, the way we move, the way we connect with nature, it's all this interconnectedness that is beautiful in its simplicity and its complexity. But the way that we nurture these things really is simple. It's about choosing the foods that Mother Nature provides. It's about planting our feet, our naked feet or hands, our bodies on Mother Earth. It's about getting our face in the sun, being conscious of how we breathe and fresh air and the water we drink. So it's these beautifully simple things that really do support us to be the healthiest, wellest, happiest, is wellest a word, healthiest versions of us, and to be thriving and flourishing. So today I want to really give us another simple phrase to use, and I hope you will take a moment to write it down. And it is simply this: what we focus on expands. What we focus on expands. So as we look around, and the conversation that we're going to be having with Erin today is about values and understanding our values. And our values are what drives us. And we can get pulled off course by focusing on the values that really aren't serving us to feel the way we want to feel. We do everything, we make every choice that we make because of how we want to feel. We might get a bit sidetracked by thinking that it's because of this idea of success that we're trying to attain. but it is because of how we want to feel. If we want to avoid feeling embarrassed or uncomfortable or awkward or ashamed, we can halt our growth because we don't want to try something new in case we feel fear or we feel embarrassed or we feel awkward, uncomfortable. So we want to maintain a sense of feeling safe and not embarrassed and good enough and worthy. And what are the feelings that you're wanting to cultivate? What are the feelings that you're wanting to protect? What are the ways that the choices that you're making that really do keep us in this safe little bubble where we don't have to feel uncomfortable about anything? I think about, when we're looking for pleasure, in all these lessons, I'm trying to bring it back to the simple. And it is we're chasing pleasure. We're wanting to move towards pleasure and away from pain. And pleasure really comes in the craving of and the anticipation of something. And so if I think about different stories and experiences in watching the way that I make decisions and watch the way my kids have made decisions, and what they want, what they crave, we get pulled off course by pictures of what we're told we should be craving. Pictures of what we're told by movies, by marketing, by advertising, by teachers when we're at school, by this societal picture of what life, a fabulous life looks like. And it can be the simplest thing in walking past a magnificently displayed store that sells donuts, and there's 25 different colors of icing, and our brains just get lit up with these dopamine hits of, oh my gosh, that looks so amazing. The pink and the blue and the purple and the orange, and there's sparkles and there's all these things. And we've been told our whole lives from the earliest moments that treats, that rewards are these bright junk foods. Bright junk foods that often, I don't know about you, but when I eat one of those donuts, when I bite into one, the sensation of eating it is actually not as good as the craving and the anticipation. The craving and the anticipation of the bag of chips or that donut or the lollies or whatever the junk food is that has grabbed our attention. It is in the craving and the anticipation that that feeling is being fed, that feeling of pleasure is being fed. And we can turn this as we get bigger. We get bigger ideas, and we believe it is the craving and the anticipation that the pleasure is going to come from the more fabulous car, the more fabulous house, the more fabulous job, the more money in the bank. And these are the external things that we're told will give us the pleasure of having a successful life. It's very based in bigger, flashier, more. And these are the things that keep us in this drive to succeed. But what really is success? Because I think we can dig into our pool of wisdom and life experiences that we've had along the way and see that when the pleasure in the craving and the anticipation, when I get this coming, when I get this job, when we actually get the thing, it's often the pleasure hit dissipates and we're looking for the next thing. When we get that car, there is a feeling that, yeah, but now it's going to be the next car. Now it's going to be the next bigger house, the next more fabulous thing. And there's always thinner, fitter, richer something. You know, whatever that thing is, that is the horizon thing. It is the pleasure in the anticipation and the craving of that we're really after. And what I want to talk about today, and what we're going to be diving in with Erin shortly, is how we bring this in to our everyday lives rather than it being something on the horizon. And I have a success formula that I share with my clients that I believe supports this in a greater way. And it is, the success formula is a slight differentiation on something that I learned from the great Dr. Maya Angelou, for anybody that is familiar with her work. The success formula that I would love people to start really using on a day-to-day basis is, am I proud of who I am? Am I proud of what I do? And am I proud of how I do it? And this is something that nobody else can answer for you. It is not a success formula that is reliant on the amount of money in your bank account, on the value of the car that you drive, or the value of the house that you live in, or the suburb that you're in, or the qualification that you have necessarily. It brings it back to being an internal conversation. In this measurement of success is, am I proud of who I am? Am I proud of what I do? And am I proud of how I do it? It feels like a pleasure in every moment when we cultivate this, when you really cultivate it. So I started this little intro before Erin comes in saying what we focus on expands. So as long as we're focusing on all the things we haven't got yet, and it's not that that is wrong, it's not that that is bad. We either, you know, Tony Robbins says we're either growing or we're dying, as in anything in the natural world. We're either growing or we're dying. It's not about not wanting more, but it is about being mindful of what we already have. It is about in cultivating that pride in who we are right now. Am I the healthiest I can possibly be? Am I the kindest, most loving, generous, courageous, unapologetic, authentic, determined? What are some of the words that pop into your mind as I say this? Because they've got to be your words. And as you move through your day and as you interact with other people, as you connect, so it starts with that, am I proud of me? And as you move in the world, as you see the person that you wake up to next in bed, if you wake up with somebody else, as you see your children, as you connect with people through your work, or as you go shopping, whatever it is that you do in your day, are you proud of what you do? Are you proud of how you smile at people that you greet? How you speak? How you listen? How you give? How you serve? And there's just these little micro adjustments that get to happen when we have this focus. And then are you proud of how you do it? There's so many micro moments in our day where we can come back and use this with the intention to be the most authentic and highest expression of the woman we are here to be. Cultivating that self-love, the more we pour into ourselves, the more we light up with that energy of love and generosity and unapologetic understanding that we were born worthy and we remain worthy. We just get to activate it, become more radiant, more connected. And in that, we can answer with clarity, I am proud of who I am. I am proud of what I do. And I am proud of how I do it. It's a good feeling. And not a, you know, just to ground us back into that understanding that it is not about anybody else's opinion. Only you can answer it. Only you can answer it. And the more that you answer that with confidence, the more successful we become. So I have with us today, Erin Lee. Erin, are you there?
Hi, Edwina.
Hello, Gia. Maybe
Hi.
we can, there we go. Thank you so much for being with us, Erin. I wanted to just give people a minute, well, the briefest of introductions, and then I like for you to introduce yourself. So Erin is the founder of the Mindful Yoga School. And for those that haven't come across Erin till now, she specializes in mindfulness as a pathway to well-being. And today we're going to talk about all things values, which is just something that I feel so passionate about. And then as time permits, I want to dig in and ask you a little bit more about yoga and mindfulness as well. So thank you so much for being with us, Erin.
Thank you so much for having me here. I love the intention of your series.
It when we had a chat about doing this together, and you know, I've always got this book open next to me for anyone that hasn't got it yet. It is such an impactful read. It's amazing. It really is.
Yeah, it's a great resource book to tap into again and again.
Yeah.
Causes and the solutions. I love how Johan sums it up.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. So what I want to do first, for those that haven't come across you until now, or perhaps don't know your story, we all get to the point of doing the work that we do as entrepreneurs because of something that's happened in our lives. It doesn't just happen by error. So I'd love to just hear a little bit of your story and how you came to be doing the work that you're doing in the world now.
Oh, sure. Thank you for the opportunity. Well, running the Mindful Yoga School, I never imagined, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that is what I would be doing. But it was really a step-by-step progression. And I guess when I look at what my intentions have been in life, what my deepest values have been, it's really been about peace. I'm a bit of a peacemaker. I love harmony. That's been my work because, for a long time I avoided confrontation. We can get into that. So yoga I discovered in my early 20s, and it was always there throughout university and career changes and travel. I ebbed and flowed with my practice of it, but it always brought me back to my own state of peace and balance. And after quite a significant life event back in 2009 when the father of my two young daughters and my beloved husband died very suddenly and unexpectedly. I really had to go do a lot of soul searching and to find peace with this big unexpected event that had happened in my life. And it was really returning to yoga again. I was on maternity leave at the time when it happened, and it took me a few months to get back to feeling like doing something in my body again. But when I did, you know, I remembered again what was important. You know, I got a higher perspective again. And so, you know, fast forward a couple of years, I thought I really want to deepen yoga in my life. It really helped me through that challenging time. And so I undertook my first level 1 yoga teacher training program. No intention to teach, as most people have coming into those kinds of programs. I guess just so hard to see from that side that you're going to be a teacher. You know, there's so much to learn first. But I ended up teaching like the day before I graduated and then never looked back. And fast forward 7 years and I ended up running my own yoga school. So I guess that sums up, you know, the real catalyst for me wanting to share through this yoga school the power of yoga and to help others bring this beneficial modality into their lives more and to help them become a demonstration for other people. You know, the ripple effect just keeps going on. So I train people to become teachers so they can create their own ripple effect of the peaceful effects that yoga can bring.
Yeah, I find it more and more and more, I'm becoming aware of you know, we've talked a long time about life is happening for us, not to us. And this is so often a really challenging kind of concept to swallow when you've experienced terrible grief or things that have happened that just feel like, what on earth could be the good in any of this? And I understand that very intimately. But what I also see in the beautiful entrepreneurs like yourself that I speak to regularly in the interviews that I do is that the thing that comes out of it that is beautiful and is of service to this collective whole is that we develop a wisdom when we go through these things that enables us to support other people as they end up inevitably going through hardships in their life. And I know that you know, meditation was one of the things that I learned finally during COVID. It was, you know, I dabbled in and out and always, it was never something that I had time for, or always felt like it was a bit indulgent, or, you know, like this stillness and slowing down was something that I had to fall in a really deep pit before I really took it on and understood the absolute value of it. So, and I can look back at my life and see so many instances where it's in really tough times, like when my sister died and so on, that I learned the skills that I can now pass on to other people. So I appreciate hearing your story because it just allows the women who are listening to this to see the things that happen in our lives, to see a silver lining in it somewhere.
Yeah, and it's very hard to see in the freshness of the event, isn't it? What comes next, and often that's the cause of, you know, anxiety with unexpected events is all the what ifs, and I don't know what life looks like now because I didn't expect this to happen. And it takes a while for things to settle, doesn't it, after those big events, and I guess to get that perspective and be able to find gratitude and see the gifts in things. So yeah, time is a great friend.
Yeah, it is. And having wise friends that you can lean into, that, you know, it makes a massive difference in these situations, which is connection, isn't it? This is what we're talking about. It's not trying to to go it all alone and not be a burden to other people, and these things that we're sort of taught to just, bunker down and try and cope on your own is really not always the best way to go forward.
That's a really important point, and a big factor in finding that healing and connection again. And it is amazing what it does bring out in people, hardship, and the community, and the willingness to help. I mean, we've seen it with things that have gone on at a global level, or, in your own life with the passing of your sister, and who rallies together to support. And, even a new mum that's had a baby, and the community that wants to help and cook food. And, it's wired into us, that sense of community, isn't it? And so sometimes given the way that society is setting itself up into becoming more and more isolated from one another, sometimes it is in those challenges where we do remember that we are connected and have community. Not that we want to bring those on, but to understand that suffering is a natural aspect of all our lives that we all share. And gratitude that it brings us together in those more difficult times.
Absolutely. I think we've been very conditioned to not be a burden to anyone else. I don't want to trouble you, but I'm just wondering if, that kind of language. And one of the greatest lessons I learned when I suddenly became a single mother with 4 children under 8, very, very suddenly. And we ended up all in hospital because I had tonsillitis and I couldn't even swallow my own saliva. And so I bundled these 4 tiny children up, went into the hospital, and the doctor, bless him, wouldn't let me leave until I rang somebody for help. I was so hardwired not to ask for help. And I think as women, we're taught to, soldier on, you can do this, don't be a burden to other people. And it was in ringing somebody, a very dear friend, and asking for help, which was so hard, that I actually learned that in doing that, it gives other people permission to then ask me for help. So it's an act of generosity.
So true. So true. And Edwina, I don't know about you, but there's I can intellectualize the idea of leaning on others and calling on support. And I've learned to do that through our shared experience. But there's still layers that even I feel in myself are unveiling in that regard. There's still the deep embedded self-preservation layers that we all have, don't we? We're a human and we've got an ego, we've got self-preservation layers. So that it takes real courage, doesn't it, to ask for help. But gosh, the richness of the connection that unfolds, it's always worth it. Always worth it.
It is, and it is that thing of the intellectual of knowing we want to treat other people as we want to be treated, but then we don't want to ask in case when that fear of judgment, and somebody's going to think that we're not good enough, we're not coping, or we're not, somehow makes us seem weaker or inadequate, or, it's just that constant conversation, which is never how we treat somebody else. It is. And I value these conversations because they're the really real conversations. There's the intellectual, there's the knowing, and then there's the practicing. So what I really want to do is have this conversation about values, because I think it is so important for people to understand this, and understanding the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic values. But let's start with, what are core values? Erin, how do we understand our core values and what they are?
How I like to think of core values is, what do you feel most passionate about? What lights your fire? What is it in life, maybe that you even feel angry about? Like, what is it that gives you that feeling, that highly vibrating feeling of interest and curiosity? What, So it could be, social justice issues really get you boiling inside and you feel really strongly about helping other people and making things right and fair and just. It could be, the thought of everybody getting along in this world and us being in total harmony is what really lights my inner fire up. I know that that is not a reality, that is, that everybody is going to get along, but just the working towards action of that is a core value. And the word courage, what are we willing to stand up for? What are we willing to speak up about? These are things that will give you an idea of what you feel strongly about. It could be something that you felt really passionate about as a child, like you might be highly creative. And so a core value might be that you make time for you so that you can be creative or have certain surroundings and space to yourself so that you can allow that creativity to flow through. Because if you don't, then, and you're not connecting to that core thing that's very, very important to you in your life, you'll start to feel a little disconnected because you're not living in alignment with your truth, essentially. So, in terms of it being being these core values, being what you are willing to stand up for, it takes courage to claim them. And the word courage, the root word, Latin word core, means heart. So essentially, core values are the matters that are most important to your heart.
Yeah, and I think if we take time to look back through your life, you can see threads. You can see these threads like a theme that give you, I don't think our core values don't change. I think they mature perhaps, but they don't change. And, if I think about nature as a core value, one of my core values, it is a driver in just about every decision I make. It drives me in thinking about what clothes I buy, because I only buy natural fibers. It drives the decisions in what foods I eat. It drives my decisions in my preference to walk outside rather than go to the gym. It drives my decisions in how I educated my children. It drives my decisions in what I put in my body and what I don't. It's, it is like it's just this golden thread that runs throughout my life. It's, how I ended up studying naturopathy. It's all these different themes that have happened in my life. I can see where I look to the natural world for guidance in everything. So, I feel that as people strive to try and find what that is, I can hear, a core value for you is peace, and how that's brought you to doing the work that you're doing. And so anyway, that's
Yeah, and it's interesting hearing about your core value of nature, and I share that as well. I've spent part of my life as a marine scientist and environmental planner, and I love understanding nature. And this yoga work is all about understanding our inner landscape and our own inner nature. They're one and the same.
Yep.
And yes, with me being a peacemaker, sometimes like nature's not always there in terms of how we expect it to be there, or peace isn't always present in any given situation. So I really love practicing how can we still remember and give ourselves an experience of these values without them having to be around us in the outside world. So say, for example, as long as you can see a piece of sky, I guess you're always in touch with nature. But sometimes we set up the rules for ourselves that it has to be, walking through a beautiful park to really connect with nature, or by the ocean or a lake or a mountain. sometimes we're going to be in a position in life like COVID, for example, where we don't have as much access to what we're used to. And so how can we still stay in alignment with our core values then? This is what I love working with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So how do we get a sense of whether we are living into our values or not? How do we use that as like a North Star?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I would suggest is to know what they are, to know what your values are. I undertook this I've written core values down before, like my top 10, what's most important to me. But a really rich process that I love to go through my whole entire life and extract what it was I felt most passionate about was a passion mapping process, it's called. And you look at your life from all angles, from childhood, what you really love to do, what brings you most joy now, what it is that you most like to share with other people, what you most enjoy receiving. And there's all these questions, and you go through and you highlight the similarities, and it just extracts. And when I did this process, the teaching of yoga, mindfulness, and meditation really lit me up, and I knew that before, but this verified it, this passion mapping process. And swimming in the ocean, so being in nature, time with my two daughters, traveling over to Argentina to spend time with my late husband's family and staying connected with them. So it extracted these things I was very passionate about, but then, like we've just discussed, I may not always be able to fly over to South America so knowing these, I guess, more aspirations or experiences that I wanted to have in my life, I had to rise a little bit higher and go, okay, so traveling to Argentina or swimming in the ocean or teaching yoga, mindfulness, and meditation, what feeling is that giving me, or what experience is that giving me? Because that's really the root of what we want to get to with our core values. And usually it comes down to one word, maybe two, maybe it's balance, love, connection, compassion, acceptance, peace, these, I guess, deeper core values, which then it doesn't have to be limited to me just experiencing that by swimming in the ocean. Now I'm clear that I feel connected by swimming in the ocean, but then I can go, what else gives me an experience of connection? It's when I'm breathing into my body, and I know that I'm breathing in and out of my body. There's connection there. So, hey, look, now I've found something that I can take with me wherever I go. I don't have to be at the ocean. My rules around getting this experience of my core values have lightened up a little.
Yeah. I learned this work initially from Brene Brown in Dare to Lead, and she's got a list for anyone that's wanting some words to play with, to contemplate, to try on. If you haven't sort of worked out what your values is, she has a free resource. I'll actually pop it in the comments of this video. But her core values are courage and connection, I believe. Somebody can correct me if I'm not right. I think they're hers. Mine are Mother Nature and love. And I think it's, as we talk about these things and as we share them, it's really helpful to hear. I find it helpful to hear how people use their values. And I use my values. I talked a little bit about nature, but my value of love, it is the driving force of why I do everything I do and how I stay connected to being the woman I want to be. So I talk about, if somebody cuts me off in traffic, there is that moment of, you can swear and rant and say, well, selfish asshole, everybody's, this and everybody's that. And it's easy to get pulled into that. Or there is that, gosh, I hope they're okay. Oh, it's awful running late. Just, through that filter of love, it's through the filter of love that I look at the 10,000 stretch marks on my belly and the skin above my knees that's starting to sag. And it's like, as we look at this, rather than looking at the things on our bodies and judging them with misery and despair, it's like with love. It's with love.
Yeah,
And
lovely.
it as a guiding value, it supports me to be the woman that I want to be in the world.
Yeah.
Nature supports me to be the woman I want to be in the world. It keeps me part of this interconnected web of life. It's part of me as the whole. But there's no right or wrong. This is one of those conversations where I think we can get very caught up in, I know my value should be, but
Yeah.
that's not the conversation. It's not.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, welcome to being a human.
Yeah.
And that's where I have working with compassion, the value of the core value of compassion, and not just the loving aspect of compassion for things that are going well, but that self-compassion that when we experience those shared human moments of me not being peaceful. There's been many moments during parenting, absolutely many moments on that long haul flight over to Argentina, but to remember that what I'm experiencing in those moments of those temporary unpleasant emotions that might boil up and drive my behavior sometimes, that they are shared amongst humanity. And so when someone else is presenting at me in that way, that car that's cutting you off on the road, we can remember that they too are like us, that we've likely had moments of that too, where we've had a priority, where we've self-preserved and we've carved our own path, no matter who's been in the way. And so that working value of compassion, I've really enjoyed deepening, not only compassion for self during those times when we haven't been living in alignment with that we know that matters most to our heart, but compassion for others who aren't either. And this just dissolves those shoulds and the judgments and seeps the love right back in, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's the beauty of getting older, whether that's 35, 45, 55, 65. It's this, we're collecting wisdom and we can look back and see so clearly. I can see so clearly when I lived in victim mode for years, everybody else. It was like my reason for my misery, my reason for not being really healthy was because of this. It was all these kind of external things. It's so easy to find somebody to blame for why we're unhappy.
Yeah.
And so it's not about having got it right, and it's not about getting it right all the time. It's about just that daily practice of intention, that daily practice. And the more we have these little guideposts, these little checkpoints, it's like, am I feeling off? If I'm feeling off, why? Am I looking at something that's not through a lens of love? Am I being judgmental? Am I being hurtful? Am I being, whatever it is? It's like, it's just a way to come back. Am I eating the wrong things? Am I leaning into the potato chips, which is my greatest weakness?
Yeah, I love chips
Or
too.
yeah, or am I, eating foods that have got vitality and are helping me to feel better? Like it's just these little micro adjustments that we're all making every day.
Yeah. And that to celebrate the remembrance rather than the beating the self up. I went to the movies last night with my daughter, and I've been on this amazing, this plethora of supplements and eating so well for the last couple of months, and she works at the movies, so we're at this other cinema, and she gets this discounted ticket and discount off the food, and she's like, you got to try this jalapeno and cheese popcorn. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do that, honey. And then you got to try this bit of chocolate. And I did. And I, went into that. I'm beating myself up. I mean, we know better, right? And the worst thing is when you start beating yourself up, you know better that you shouldn't beat yourself up, and then you're beating yourself up for, it's like, this compounding effect. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to celebrate this moment with my daughter. We've had such a beautiful time, and I've woken up today and I've remembered to get back on my supplements and drink lots of water and move my body. And I'm really in celebration mode of that today, as opposed to feeling really bad about last night.
Yeah, back on track. I know.
And this is mindfulness. Like, this is, this practice of mindfulness that's been throughout yogic history for thousands of years, but it was really Buddha that was able to detail it in really great logic. And he had, what was written down in the discourses of his teachings was that mindfulness really is about remembering what you're getting present to right now, right here. And just as importantly, to remember what gets in the way of that and what distracts you from that, like, the judgment or the shoulds. And then, third and final point, what are the helpful values, essentially, he was saying, or intentions or skillful qualities? What are the helpful, skillful qualities that can bring you back to remembering what's here right now?
Yeah.
And I love the simplicity of this. There's no kind of guilt about having been distracted in meditation or with the jalapeno and cheese popcorn, or there's no guilt at what's going to help me to remember to come back to anchoring myself back here right now and being with this moment. It's acceptance, it's compassion, it's nature.
It's getting out of autopilot, isn't it? This is the biggest trap, I think, is Kim Morrison on day one talked about, she does hypnosis, and she said it's not really about hypnosis, it's becoming unhypnotized, because we get in this autopilot mode of shoulds, and I should do this and I should do this. And I think we can get up in the morning and it's like, right, I should drink this huge glass of water, and then I've got to go for a walk, and then I've got to, do this yoga stretch, and then I've got to do, and becomes like an autopilot way of should lists. But we're not getting the full value of doing those things unless we're mindful with them.
Yeah, exactly. The supplements aren't going to have the effect unless you're mindful with them. Like, what energy are you throwing those things down with?
Yeah.
It's how, like, I loved at the beginning of today, one of your points was about how are you doing it? Can you be proud of how you're doing it, the way that you're approaching everything?
Yeah. There is, for people that have studied I'm fascinated by the longest lived, the blue zones, the people that have lived the longest, and they live these beautiful, if you look at Ikaria in Greece, these 100+ year olds that are all living in community and drinking their wine, and they have never seen a gym or it is just that such a simple way of life. I've got off track. I'm trying to think why I brought that up, but it's
the how.
But it's the mindfulness as well. They're in this moment, I believe. Maybe I'm romanticizing it, but when I look at how they interact with each other, the joy in their faces, it's so mesmerizing. It's so beautiful because they're so connected. I don't ever get the feeling when I watch those communities and those people in action, I don't get the sense that they're trying to adjust their clothes and wondering what people are thinking of them, and am I wearing the right thing, and am I thin enough, and what are they thinking of the car that I pulled up in? And they're not the conversations. Are they judging me because I don't have this much money in the bank? Or none of that.
Yeah.
Part of the conversation. They're looking at the person and they're experiencing somebody that's interested in what they have to say, and they're kind, and they've got, it's just this connection.
This is where that mindfulness or presence,
Mm.
making this become how you do everything. It kind of doesn't really matter what you do then. You could be doing the job that you once hated the most, but when you change the how you do it with presence, moment by moment presence, it unveils things that we've never seen before about what we're doing.
Yeah.
I bet for anyone who is watching this and listening to this, to look around the room that you're in and find one thing that you've never noticed about that room before, like something that's in it, an object, or the way the light's being cast. There's always something that you're going to find, and this is where, you'd mentioned earlier how you wake up in the morning, and maybe if you wake up with a partner, I mean, imagine looking at them as if it was the first time you were seeing them again, and the detail and the beauty that you would all of a sudden see, rather than just the autopilot thoughts.
Yeah.
Or your pet, or the tree outside your garden. It's in the simplest of things, isn't it, where we can find the most rich moments of life.
I learned one of the very first interview series I did, I interviewed a gorgeous woman called Vicky Kelly, who lives in New Zealand. And she talked about the heart hug. And it is something that I have done with my children and my husband ever since. And, when you go to hug somebody, you typically hug left side to left side, but a heart hug is putting your heart to their heart. So it's the other way. And when you hug like that and you think about the energy of your heart connecting with the energy of their heart, the difference between that and the see you, babe, quit hug on the cheek, have a good day, the connection. And, like, we've all done it. Hopefully we've all done both. We've all experienced both. Being in front of somebody that when you see them and they give you a hug or they hold your hand and they see you, that experience of genuine loving connection, just the most magic thing on the planet.
Yeah, it's really rich, isn't it? And it takes, like you said before, slowing down, doesn't it? It takes slowing down.
Yep.
What are we in such a rush for anyway? Yes. Slowing down is a really big one to opening the gateway of presence. In yoga, this is what I really love, is practicing that intention embodiment in yoga, and going, okay, so I know I need to slow down. Okay, patience. In yoga, we're always at the beginning of a class or a moment, a great yogic practice is getting clear on what your sankalpa or your intention is. But it's not just a goal in this moment. I should be patient. It's, okay, I have deep remembrance. This is really what matters to my heart. And let me set it as a very devotional vow, patience. So now every move that I make on this yoga mat, I've got an anchor in my mind and in my heart that's going to drive the how of every move with patience. Okay, the teacher's rushing me. I'm still going to have this deeply anchored within me that I'm going to operate in a patient way, no matter what's going on around me. And that cultivation during the practice of a 1-hour yoga class then bleeds out into, you'll leave the class and you'll drive away and you'll just be carrying this patience with you until you forget. And then you come back to the mat and you keep cultivating, or you come back to the meditation. And I really love, like we're talking about sometimes these shoulds and aspirational, these values, but I think to really bring them into the physical body, I've found helps so much, to not just have them sitting out here as an I should, to breathe in a patient way, to breathe in a loving way, and how would I behave in my body? How would I put my left foot forward in a loving way? Just to really practice moving every piece of our body and our breath in alignment with these values. I think the body's here to anchor heaven on earth, while we're here. And these are really heavenly values, these core values. They're of the heart.
Beautiful. I remember hearing, I don't know if anyone else watched Alone. My husband and I have got this slight addiction to the series of Alone. They send 10 people off into the wilderness, and it's whoever survives the longest. And they did one recently in Australia. And the woman who won, Australian woman, Gina Chick, she talks about when she walks barefoot on the earth, her feet are kissing the earth as she walks. And it's like, just these little, like when I think of doing these interview series and these conversations, it's like if people take away one little thing like that, it's life-changing. It's literally life-changing. We're looking for these complicated things that are going to support us to live these magnificent lives. Magnificent life is thinking every time your bare feet hit the earth that she's kissing Mother Nature. I think that's gorgeous.
Love that. I love that.
So you've recently written a book. Tell us a little bit about that.
I have. It's called The Little Book of Big Intentions. So it's in line with this topic. They're really core values, these intentions, and running yoga teacher training programs. Part of a lot of the program is very contemplative. So Patanjali was a great rishi or seer around 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, and part of his teachings that have carried through into it's called the 8 limbs of yoga, just really 8 ways to practice yoga. One of those ways is about the physical movement, just one. What makes up 2 of these 8 ways are these values or these morals or ethics, ways that we're choosing to move through life. So like with compassion or non-violence, with truth and purity or a sense of cleanliness in our mind and in the way that we take our actions, and non-attachment. So during the yoga teacher training programs, we'd spend a lot of time contemplating how these values play out in our everyday life and on the yoga mat. And it was such an enjoyable process. And I was writing another book at this time. I was 5 years into it, 3rd draft of this book about mindfulness and grief and, my own journey and how healing it had been for me. And it didn't feel activated. I just didn't feel like moving that book forward to being published. And I was talking with a friend of mine who writes books as well. And she said, okay, so you've been writing this for 5 years. If you put that down and just set it aside and look afresh, what have you got to say now? And I said, I'm really loving working with intention and, these 10 values that we explore every yoga intake. But there's more, and all due respect to the ancient wisdom and knowledge of these 10 values. But I started to feel like I really want to explore patience and acceptance and sovereignty and, these other ways of navigating through life that have helped me personally. And just like, great, just start with one of those and write about it. So I did. And as I was writing about it, I was like, I feel like there's a yoga pose that could go with this to help me bring this experience into my body, to help me experience kindness, for example, in my body. Yeah, there's a yoga pose for this. And then I thought, well, I'm going to have to get someone to do the drawings. I'm no artist. So I found an artist who then would read my writings, and I'd send her a picture of me in the yoga pose, and she'd come back with this artwork, and we danced. And this book now is about 27 intentional qualities that each have a contemplative writing about them, a yoga pose to support the embodiment of that intention, and step-by-step guidance on how to get into that particular yoga pose, or there's some breath, pranayama breath work in there as well. And what unfolded then, once the artist started bringing through each drawing, I've got the book here. So the cover is actually the embodiment of love. This is Anjani Asana, or a modified crescent moon pose, with the feminine moon and the masculine sun, and she's really finding the balance between that giving and taking and sending and receiving of the masculine and feminine energy to land in the love that flows through the middle of both of those energies. But once I saw what she was bringing through in terms of the artwork, another friend actually said they should be cards. They should be guided cards too. So I was like, they totally should be. So this really turned into a very co-creative process. It wasn't me just burrowing down with my mindfulness and grief book anymore. This was a joy, because it started involving the artist, and I bounced it off my friends, and I was being mentored by my friend who was writing the books. And so it turns out that there's the book now, and then there's also a box set that comes with the book and the guidance cards. So it's just been a total joy to create.
Collaboration.
Collaboration, yeah. And I think I feel really so proud of it, and I love it on the other side of it, coming into manifestation, because of that, because of the co-creative magic, you know. I might be a little more shy about it, maybe, if it was just me burrowing into the corner and doing it all by myself. So like we started out talking about, the power of, you know, branching out and asking for help, and things expand beyond measure when we do that.
Absolutely. We are so much stronger together. We are so much stronger together when we combine the wisdom that we've all brought to this point. Oh my gosh, there is nothing we couldn't do. But it's
you must
just
be
that,
experiencing this with what you're doing right now with this series.
oh, it's such a pleasure to do this work. It's amazing. The things that I've learned when I started this whole process, I did a series called A League of Extraordinary Mothers, because I had 2 teenage girls that were really struggling at the time. I've got 2 boys and 2 girls. And so I started with that. It's like, I'm a naturopath and I'm a mum, and I've got all these skills, but there's so many things that I don't know. We can't ever know it all. So when we come together, we then create this beautiful, complete picture. And so I invited all these people to come and speak, and we talked about exposure to pornography and cutting, and like all the things that there's, you know, the girls' anxiety, all the things that kids are struggling with now, and created this amazing resource. And it's just gone on and on and on. So now it's Lost Connections. And I feel like this is actually one of the most important conversations on the planet right now. I really genuinely do believe it's one of the most important conversations we can be having. We are so disconnected. Loneliness is epidemic. Our focus on extrinsic values over intrinsic values. We have so much focus on the houses and the cars and the travels, and all the things is extrinsic, all the things about what will other people see me, when will other people see me as successful, how can I be judged as a successful human. But when we get to the end of our life, nobody is ever reading the eulogy saying, well, they drove this car and they lived in this house and they had this much money in the bank. That's not the stuff that matters. It's not the stuff we're remembered for. It's the impact that we have on other humans. It's who we have been. It's the intrinsic values of kindness and love and peace and compassion and vulnerability and courage. And these are the things that have the most priceless value.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you might have a similar message to share too. But when I reflect back on the 8 years that I had with my husband before he died, what stands out for me are his ways like that his lightness and his fun and his quirkiness and his sense of freedom. And it wasn't what he did for a job. It wasn't what he owned or how much money he had. At zero importance to me post death. Just, that's the main memory, the main legacy that he has left, with me and others that he loved, was how he went about life, what values he stood for and lived by. Yeah. And the importance of anchoring this in for yourself every day. Yeah, no matter what billboards you're going to pass and be distracted by, what shops you're going to be passing by, what marketing messages, what the neighbors are doing to their home, just keep coming back somehow, however it works for you. For me, it's through the yoga practice and the meditation and the mindfulness. And for you, it might be post-it notes of your values on the fridge and reading them every morning. This is really, this is what's important. Energy will flow where our intention goes. And that will continue to ripple out. Just like I'm thinking of the Greek women that you were talking about before, and the looks on their faces and how much that stayed embedded with you as an impression. It wasn't what they were doing, but it was how they were doing it that mattered.
Yeah. I think it's so pivotal to remember that people remember us for how we make them feel. People remember us. Our deepest connections, our greatest friendships are because of how people make us feel and how we make other people feel. So, for years that frustration or embarrassment that my house was a mess and my garden wasn't up to scratch and all these things, when I walk into somebody's house, it's how they make me feel, how welcome they make me feel, how delighted they are to see me. That's the stuff that we want to connect with people for, not because the laundry's done and the floors are washed. We get caught up in the wrong things.
We get caught up, and it's recognizing it within yourself, isn't it? I still get swept up in it, but it's, that moment where you go, oh, I'm feeling that stress energy re-enter. You can feel it. And just to pause, take a breath, get back into the body.
Yep.
And remember what your intention is, today, or how you want to be, and then, okay, keep doing the laundry and keep making the dinner and keep doing all the things, but it's with the how. Yeah,
absolutely. I know you've got a gorgeous gift for our audience. Did you want to tell it? Well, we've got Erin's given us a copy of her beautiful book that's gone into the grand prize bundle for the people in the 3Cs Connection community.
right.
The one lucky person is going to win that. But you've also got a gift for everyone. Could you just let us know what that is?
Yeah, I do. It's a 7-day, 7 days of Sankalpa online program that's normally $97, but it's going to be complimentary. Wow. And for 7 days, I'm guiding you through 7 of the intentions from the little book of big intentions. And I've got a video in there for you for us to contemplate the intention for each day, a meditation audio to really help you to become familiar with the particular intention of the day, patience, compassion, acceptance, and a beautiful downloadable journal that you could print off or just type into if you don't want to print off on the paper, with some questions to guide you on reflecting on this intention that you've been setting every day. So that is what I would love to gift everybody.
I think the gift of time to contemplate and think is it's just an art form that has disappeared for so many. It's just this constant stimulation. but taking time away with what you've just listened to today, what Erin has just shared with you today, to find time in stillness, to contemplate it, to think about what bubbles up, what landed in your brain. That's how we really start to put this stuff into action and allow it to make a difference. It's been a beautiful conversation. I'm so grateful to you, Erin. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me as part of this beautiful series that you've put together. I'm enjoying it and I'll keep tuning in. Thank you so much, Edwina.
Thanks so much. All right, everyone, we will see you again this afternoon. We have a bonus call coming in as well. So, all right, that's it from us. Thanks and bye for now.